Imagine waking up one day and the government tells you, "We're giving you land, a way to build wealth and a future for your family." Now, imagine they snatch it back just as fast. That's exactly what happened to newly freed Black Americans after slavery. A promise was made, a future was within reach. But in the end, it was stolen. Let's talk about 40 acres and a mule, what it meant, why it was taken away, and how it still affects us today. What was the promise? In 1865, during the final months of the Civil War, Union General William T. Sherman issued Special Field Order Number 15. This order set aside 400,000 acres of land along the coast of South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, specifically for newly freed Black families. Each family was promised 40 acres of land, and in some cases, the military gave them mules left behind by the Confederate Army. For the first time, Black Americans could own land, build communities, and create wealth for future generations. It was a chance to start over, a chance to finally have something of their own. But that dream was short-lived. Why did African Americans expect it? For over 200 years, enslaved Black Americans built the economy of the South with their labor for free. So when slavery ended, many believed reparations were due. Land ownership meant survival. Without land, they had no way to farm, build businesses, or provide for their families. Leaders like Frederick Douglass argued that without land, Black Americans would remain trapped in poverty, still dependent on the very people who had enslaved them. For a brief moment, it looked like justice was coming. Families began settling on the land, farming, and building a future. Then came the betrayal. Why didn't they receive it? In April 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. His successor, Andrew Johnson, had very different ideas about race and power. Johnson, a Southern sympathizer, immediately reversed Sherman's order. The land that had been given to free Black families, he gave it back to white plantation owners, the same people who had enslaved them. Black families who had already begun farming and building homes were forced off the land. Instead of owning their own property, most were forced into sharecropping, a system where they had to rent land from white owners. But the system was rigged. They worked the land, but they never got ahead. It was slavery by another name. The long-term impact? This betrayal wasn't just about land, it was about wealth and power. Land ownership meant generational wealth. White landowners were able to pass their wealth down, while Black families were stuck in cycles of poverty and debt. Without land, Black Americans had little economic power. That led to segregation, discrimination in housing, and ongoing economic struggles that lasted for generations. Just imagine, if those 40 acres had been honored, Black families could have built thriving communities, farms, and businesses, just like white Americans did. But they never got that chance. Why this matters today. 40 acres and a mule wasn't just land. It was a promise of freedom, a promise of a future, a promise that was stolen. And that's why understanding history is so important, because the effects of that betrayal are still being felt today. If this truth matters to you, share this video, because history shouldn't be forgotten.